Hello and welcome to Rock Paper Shotgun. Now Darksiders 3 is freshly released, along with the 7 deadly sins that we now have to hunt down as one of the horsemen of the apocalypse. This time it's Fury's turn in the spotlight. Well, if the spotlight can keep up with her, she's very good at the old dodging. The question is, as she hunts for the sins, does she commit any of the 7 deadly game design sins? The aim of this video is to find out as we look at what does and doesn't work in Darksiders 3. I love how Darksiders reinvents itself with each iteration, reinforcing the idea of the horsemen as individual stars of their own games. War got a decent Zelda clone with hefty combat, Death got to choose his means of execution from a vast Diablo-esque loot system, and Fury gets, well, magic hair that changes colour at the press of a button. I could honestly watch this effect all day. Okay, so there's more to Fury than changing hair colour. I mean, her fire hair can be doused in water, for example. That's some pretty incredible fire hair physics. Okay, so there's even more to Fury than that. The Earth she explores is a large interconnected dungeon, kind of like Dark Souls' layout in the way it loops back on itself and connects in odd ways, and a lot like Metroid, because many of the routes around it depend on physical abilities that you unlock by killing bosses.
Take this.
The stasis hollow. Why?
Question my gift.
In truth, the Dark Souls comparisons aren't actually that strong. Darksiders 3 is a much gentler game for starters, missing that sense of claustrophobic dread. This is largely due to the fact that Fury can fast travel between Volgrim's serpent holes. In Dark Souls, you'd often be pushing into deeper, darker territory, so when you finally found safe, familiar ground, it was a huge relief. When you can zip around the world at will, it has none of that tension. Combat here is also much nimbler than anything you'd see in a Souls game, built almost entirely around devastating counterattacks after well-timed dodges. It's really not understating it to say that once you master dodge timings, Darksiders 3 becomes a bit of a pushover. Even against some of the bosses, you could just stand still and alternate between dodge and attack buttons and comfortably win. It doesn't have the elegance or depth of a Platinum Games fighting system, or the barbarity of God of War. I mean, the lack of execution moves, which we enjoyed in the previous games, is a big mistake here. But there's lots of fun to be had thumping monsters in the face with a spear made from lightning. I'm more interested in the game's similarities with Metroid, to be honest. Gunfire add their own spin to some quite traditional ideas. I love the fact that you earn a rush of new powers at once with the new Hollow system. Hollows explain Fury's changing hair colour, and each one she unlocks introduces a new secondary weapon, a new traversal ability, and a new Wrath attack. Take the Storm Hollow for example. Not only does it let you cosplay as Storm from the X-Men, but it gives you a floating move, the ability to summon a small army of tornadoes, and that amazing lightning spear. It's easily my Hollow of choice, because the counterattack with the Lance of Scorn is one of the game's few ranged attacks, and I love dodging arrows and returning the pain to sender. I like the Hollow system because it gives you a rush of new toys at once, changing how you see the world and how you handle combat. Admittedly, there aren't many huge surprises in the skills you do unlock. This is a pretty conservative bunch of high jumps and long jumps. When the last power you unlock is a wall jump, it's not really much of a grand finale. I'd also love to have seen them do more with the wall climbing force ball. It basically runs along a fixed track, which makes me think it's hiding a loading screen more than anything else. Metroid had a lot more fun with its similar spider ball power. I mean, if you're going to borrow ideas, do borrow the good bits too. But back to more positive things. I think the game delivers good backtracking and collectible hunting. In true Metroid fashion, you're expected to return to earlier areas with new powers to find hidden items, and I'm impressed with how much these levels opened up when I did return to them. You can float over a gap and find entire apartment blocks to fight through, or routes that deposit you way up in the sky, staring down at the ground you were walking around 10 minutes earlier. I love it when new moves transform old areas, and this really does tick that box. It also delivers on the power fantasy of smacking old enemies with beefed up weapons. Monsters that proved tricky when you first met them can now be torn apart with common attacks. When I played the game at preview, I felt that Fury's whip was underpowered and unsatisfying to use against larger groups. What actually happens in the full game is a real sense of emerging power. Your wild flailing does feel wimpy in the early hours, but by the end of the game you can just hold down attack and let it take care of pretty much anyone. More importantly, the collectibles you're hunting aren't just straightforward upgrades. Instead, they are materials to have Ulthane improve weapons and their enhancements.
What do you need, horseman?
I like that you can choose how to use these hidden items. Normally you're picking up fixed health bar increases or extra magic capacity, but Darksiders gives you more say in the character you're shaping. I really like how it handles weapon enhancements too, which force you to pick between angelic or demonic versions, each with its own advantage. That said, for all it does right, it does make a couple of big Metroid-y missteps. The decision to not include a map has always been controversial, and I'm not sure the benefits outweigh the negatives. On one hand, there's something quite exciting about not knowing what's around the next corner. You're not just plodding towards a dot on the map, and it forces you to pick routes carefully, especially when you've gone for some time without finding Volgrim's next checkpoint. On the other hand, it makes backtracking an exercise in memory. Not much of a problem when you whip through the game in a day and a half, as I did for this review, but returning to mop up hidden bits is a slog to remember where everything was, or even where each serpent hole will fast travel you to. Couldn't we have unlocked a map once we'd beaten a sin in a given area? And why didn't they include a record of what you're collecting? Part of the fun in these kind of adventures is stripping out every last secret, but when you don't know how many you're trying to strip, the fun is slightly diminished. There's so much to find here. There's materials, the artifacts, new enhancements. There are also human survivors who you can magically walk back to a camp.
Must I?
And there are difficult fights with chosen warriors that reward you with materials to unlock the best upgrades. But I've really got no idea how many I've got left to go. Guessing my progress based on achievement unlocks is a real buzzkill, and I'll never know the joy of seeing a 100% completion marker next to my save file. It's only a small thing, but it has a really negative impact.
Envy.
During the game's preview tour, one idea that really caught my imagination was the freedom to tackle the 7 deadly sins in an order of your choosing. For starters, I love the idea of leaving Sloth to last. I mean, I can't be bothered to do that guy, right? But I also pictured some exciting Mega Man potential, where bringing different abilities to a fight might give Fury an advantage or disadvantage, depending on the order you approach the bosses. For starters, you have to take that freedom with a pinch of salt. The first 2 bosses are locked in, as is the last, and 2 in the middle are tackled in a fixed order for story reasons. So there are fewer decisions to be made than the initial promise would suggest.
You will be a throne, but I'll settle for your head.
But even with the freedom to tackle some bosses in your own order, there's none of that Mega Man ingenuity, and it feels like a real missed opportunity. I'd have loved to have seen Fury's physical abilities, that wall climbing or a time-freezing sword, factor into smart takedowns if you brought them to the right fight. If you ever played The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, you'll know that there's real mileage in this idea. Instead, most boss fights are basic one-on-one fights that reward the same time dodges and quick combos. I like the character designs, and some of the fights ramp up the difficulty in pleasingly unpredictable ways, none that I'm going to spoil here, but I did miss the Zelda-y vibes of the older Darksiders, where unique powers could help expose weaknesses. If they'd somehow married this older way of doing things to the more flexible collection of powers, this could have been really special, full of replayability as you hunt for the optimal route through the game. Like so much here, there's just a hint of missed opportunity. If this sounds like I had a rough time with Darksiders 3, that's probably unfair. It has good ideas that it only half explores, but it's largely solid. I should add that playing on PC, I've not encountered all the freezes and stutters shared by some console reviewers. That said, it definitely feels like more of a budget title than the previous two. Without those big THQ bucks greasing the wheels, it feels a little less polished all round, lacking the visual scale and splendour of Darksiders 2. Bits of it impress, I quite like this room full of sparkling gold and riches, but more because it's a break from the endless caves, sewers, and weird egg sacs. It also feels less spectacular in its action. Bar one prolonged fight with a tentacle beast, there's no obvious set piece to break up the pacing, something the previous games were very good at. I will say that it gets better as it goes along. Visually, the more impressive areas are on the far reaches of the map, and by the time you've unlocked all the different hollows, you're having more fun mixing up those powers together in fights and puzzles. The second half of the game also contains the more interesting sins, characters who get a bit more screen time to flesh out their roles. In the opening hours, it feels like you're just smashing through bosses at an alarming rate. Perhaps because of that initial rush, it also runs a lot shorter than Darksiders 2. I managed to beat it and collect most of the items in 15 hours. And without much reason to replay it, it feels a bit steep for £45 or 60 of your American dollars. And that's Darksiders 3 in a nutshell. Everything is a little too short, a little too rushed, a little too underwhelming. There's no one giant black mark against its name, but it can feel like death by 1,000 budget cuts. I definitely recommend waiting for a sale. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this quick tour through Darksiders 3. If you have any questions about the game, please do pop them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game. If you've played all three, where would you place this latest adventure? Did it disappoint you, or does it have you desperate to play one final story to round out the Horseman's tale? I'd love to see Gunfire finish what they started. How about you? And if you did enjoy this video, please think about subscribing to Rock Paper Shotgun. We cover anything and everything PC gaming related, from our regular Let's Plays of Divinity Original Sin 2 to our analysis of the biggest games, such as Fallout 76. I hope you check out more of our stuff, and we'll see you around soon. Bye for now.